Who put the king in the cage? My name is Bharat Divyang and welcome to another video about how to solve checkmate puzzles. So this is a checkmate in 4 moves. This is called the king in the cage puzzle. Of course, you'll never see this in actual game, but it really helps you build your abilities of learning how to checkmate, learning how to observe, and figuring out how you can actually try and solve puzzles even though they are completely made up. Okay, so you can pause the video here and try to think about how to solve this checkmate in 4 moves. And remember, the fundamental idea of learning to figure out similarities and dissimilarities in position is going to help you do that better. Okay, so let's assume for a second that, black is the first to move. So in that case, what are the possible moves? You realize that only the pieces, the pawns on rank 4 can actually move. So it can either be the D pawn, E pawn, or the F pawn. The king doesn't have many escape squares, he's kind of locked in. So can you figure out the forcing moves? Now let's assume that black moved D3. In that case, do you see the checkmate in 3 moves from here? Is it possible for white to checkmate? You can pause the video and try and test it out. Option 2 is if the E pawn moves. In this case, do you see a possible check? And do you see forcing moves? And if black moves the F pawn, then do you see a check? So you can pause the video and think about all the possible answers. Okay, so now let's get back and let me show you how you could exactly solve it. And for this, we probably need to get to an actual position. Okay, so this is the position that I've set up on Lichess. And if you had observed very carefully, the very first move was already given out, right? So my assumption was if the pawn moves here, then you should immediately realize that you have a check. And then there are forcing moves. Okay, but first we need to make some move here, some random move. So let's just make a move where, the king moves here. So in this case, if he moves here, the D pawn, then I have a check. He's forced to move this, then I have a check. He's forced to move this, then I have a check. So this is how the first variation works out. Let's go to the third variation. He moves this pawn here, I have a check. He moves this pawn here, I have a check. This pawn here, and I have a check at h8. That's checkmate. The problem, of course, arises when the center pawn moves, because I don't have any check except for the knight. The king comes here, and I have a discovered check, which will force the king to go back, in which case there is a checkmate. The only flaw in this is that when I give this check, it's not forced. The king can go here. And at this moment, if you think about it, this would be a wonderful checkmate if only the queen could be supported. So let's backtrack and remember that first move that I made, which was king d1. I don't think it's king d1. I need to go king f1. And now you can see that, d pawn and f pawn, we already know the answer. It doesn't change where the king is not involved in those two checkmates. But in this one, it definitely does. So it's a check. King moves here, check. If he comes back to e5, then it's knight checkmate. And if he goes here, then it's queen check. So that way, it's checkmate in 4 moves, no matter what. Now, this is an interesting puzzle because 1, you do not see this in a game. 2, usually when you think of forcing moves, you always have the opponent making only 1 possible response. Whereas here, there's 3 possible responses, and you still find the checkmate in each and every case. So, what are the next steps? Remember that simulations and studies can create targeted thinking skills. So it's very, very important to do puzzles of this nature. Observation skills always stand supreme. And finally, follow this channel for more insightful videos on pattern recognition, checkmate patterns, calculation, and skills associated with improving your overall cognitive ability.